The stars outside the cruiser's viewports shimmered like scattered jewels on black velvet, stretching endlessly into the void. Inside the royal cruiser Luminar, the corridors were bright and pristine, lined with polished metal and softly glowing panels. Every inch of the ship reflected the precision of the Valian Empire, a civilization renowned for order, technology, and elegance. Yet amidst the hum of machinery and calculated perfection, a small human figure walked with a quiet purpose. Jace had only recently joined the Valian royal delegation as an escort for Princess Kayla. To him, the corridors seemed impossibly complex, a maze of angles, doors, and panels that glowed with information he could not yet read. But his eyes were trained to notice patterns, to see the subtle inconsistencies others missed. He moved slowly, studying the ship with the same care he would have given an uncharted planet or a primitive puzzle. Princess Kayla, in contrast, moved with effortless grace. Her silvery blue hair flowed behind her like liquid light, and her eyes, sharp and intelligent, swept over the corridor with practiced superiority. To her, humans were amusing, barely evolved creatures with simple reflexes and curious habits. She had already dismissed Jace as more of a novelty than a serious protector. She walked ahead, the train of her ceremonial gown brushing the floor, her mind focused on the upcoming peace summit. "You really think that human can keep up with us?" she asked casually, her voice carrying just enough amusement to sting. Her chamberlain, a tall Valian named Dravi, gave a small, knowing smile. "He is unusual, Your Highness, but humans have adaptability," Dravi said cautiously. Kayla laughed softly, a sound like wind over glass. "Adaptability? Please. He struggles to understand the simplest security protocols. He's lucky he hasn't tripped over a maintenance panel yet." He had survived situations humans were not meant to survive, and he understood threats before they arrived. He simply observed, ready to act if necessary. The princess entered the main observation deck, a vast chamber with transparent walls giving a perfect view of the stars. The room was empty for now, apart from the faint glow of navigation lights and the subtle hum of the ship's engine. Jace followed at a measured pace, his human eyes scanning everything: the panels, the ceiling, the floor, and even the shadows that flickered as the ship's artificial gravity adjusted the movement of objects. "You should try to enjoy this view," Kayla said, turning slightly to give him a look that was equal parts condescension and curiosity. "It's not something your species sees every day." Small things, subtle things, an unmarked maintenance drone that moved slightly off course, a panel that glowed faintly when it shouldn't have, a soft vibration underfoot that did not match the ship's engine rhythm. Kayla noticed him watching and frowned. "You always look so serious," she said. "Relax, human. Let the Valian engineers handle things." Jace remained nearby, ostensibly taking notes and assisting with logistics. But his attention never strayed from the subtle signs of disturbance aboard the cruiser. Each movement of the crew, each change in the lighting or sound, was catalogued and analyzed. By mid-afternoon, his instincts told him something was wrong. He felt it in the vibration beneath his boots, in the way the air seemed just a fraction heavier in certain corridors, and in the faint, almost imperceptible patterns of movement among the crew. He approached Dravi, who was reviewing security logs, and lowered his voice. "Something is off," he said. "I can't explain it exactly, but there's a pattern that doesn't match the usual ship operations. I suggest we monitor the maintenance and cargo sectors closely. Not because I know an attack will happen, but because I can feel that something is different. Something is preparing." The Valians would not allow anything else. Shadows stretched along the corridors, and the hum of the engines became more pronounced against the quiet. Jace moved methodically, inspecting areas he suspected were vulnerable. He tapped lightly on panels, listened to vibrations, and made mental notes. Meanwhile, Kayla retired to her personal chambers. She changed into a simpler gown and looked out at the stars, thinking about the summit and her expectations. She still believed Jace was little more than a curiosity, amusing but ultimately useless in serious matters. Yet there was a strange sense she could not name, something about his quiet presence, the way he moved without drawing attention. She shrugged it off. Humans were simple creatures. They relied on luck as much as skill. Hours later, as the cruiser glided silently through a region of uncharted space, the subtle disturbances Jace had noticed earlier began to increase. A maintenance drone, normally predictable, passed through a corridor at an unusual angle. A hatch in the storage bay opened briefly without authorization, then closed. The ship's security systems recorded it as a glitch, nothing more. Jace did not see it that way. He moved quickly yet carefully to the storage bay. The corridor was empty, quiet except for the faint hum of the engines. He crouched low and touched the walls, sensing vibrations. A human might have dismissed it as the ship's normal pulse, but to Jace, it was a clue. Someone or something was aboard. He felt the shift in the patterns, the almost imperceptible difference in how the air moved. By the time he reached Kayla's chamber, he had already formulated a plan. If an intruder attempted to reach her, he would be ready. His weapons were not conventional. They were improvised tools, gadgets, and his own quick thinking. His human advantage was unpredictability. The aliens' reliance on protocol made them precise but slow to adapt. Jace was neither precise nor slow. He was flexible, clever, and ready for the unknown. Kayla, unaware of his observations, was reading a diplomatic report when he entered her chamber briefly to check security protocols. She glanced up at him and smiled faintly. "You still seem serious," she said. "Perhaps I was wrong. Maybe humans are alert, but alert doesn't mean useful." Actions, however, would speak louder than words, and if his instincts were correct, the night would soon provide that evidence. The hours passed slowly. Stars streaked past the viewports as the cruiser moved at faster-than-light speed. Jace maintained his vigil, noting every sound, every shadow, every movement of crew or cargo. He was patient, a quality humans developed through necessity. He did not rush. He waited for the signs to become clear. Just before midnight, the first anomaly appeared, a faint shimmer along the corridor leading to Kayla's private suites. It was subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye, but Jace noticed it immediately. He crouched and observed, recognizing a pattern that matched the earlier disturbances. Someone or something was moving with intent, avoiding cameras, bypassing standard paths. Jace's pulse quickened, not with fear but with anticipation. This was what he had prepared for. The time for speculation was over. The time for action would come soon. Princess Kayla, meanwhile, felt a brief chill as she looked out at the stars. Something about the silence of the ship felt wrong, though she could not explain why. She dismissed it, telling herself it was only the weight of responsibility, the pressure of diplomacy. But deep down, she felt a flicker of unease. The human at her side, once amusing, might yet prove to be more than she had imagined. Jace returned to his post, checking tools, securing improvised barriers, and ensuring that every path to Kayla's chamber could be defended. He was ready to turn ordinary objects into strategic advantages, to rely on ingenuity over raw strength. The stars outside were silent witnesses, the void a perfect backdrop for what was to come. In that quiet, tense night, two beings from entirely different worlds prepared for an unknown challenge. One, a princess raised in the certainty of Valian superiority. The other, a human whose greatest weapon was unpredictability, patience, and the clever use of the resources around him. Neither knew exactly what would happen next, but the stage was set. And in the shadows of the Luminar, something waited. The first part of the night would pass with quiet tension, subtle clues, and the growing realization that even the most disciplined empire could be tested by a single human mind. For now, Princess Kayla thought Jace was useless. But the human waited, patient and ready, for the moment his ingenuity would prove otherwise. The quiet of the Luminar was shattered by something almost imperceptible, a soft hiss, like air escaping from a panel. Jace had been waiting, alert and still, crouched near the corridor that led to Princess Kayla's chambers. He had noticed the anomaly hours ago and had prepared himself for this exact moment. His instincts, refined through experience, told him that the intruders were moving. He did not move too quickly. A sudden motion would draw attention. Instead, he observed the shimmer in the corridor again, faint and almost invisible. A human might have missed it entirely. The Valians certainly would have. But Jace had learned to trust the subtle, the overlooked, and the patterns that seemed off. Princess Kayla in her chamber was reviewing diplomatic files. Her thoughts wandered between political strategies and the summit ahead. She still believed Jace to be amusing at best, a human whose instincts were unreliable. Yet she felt a slight tension, a tiny prickle of unease that she could not place. It annoyed her. She was a Valian princess, trained for diplomacy, strategy, and survival. Humans were simple, their place was to follow instructions. The intruders moved carefully, almost like shadows gliding along the walls. There were 3 of them, dressed in sleek, dark suits that reflected the dim lighting of the corridor. Jace could see their reflections in the polished panels, the soft glow revealing their shapes just long enough for him to identify their approach. He counted them silently, 3. He activated a small device from his pocket, a simple gadget of human design, nothing impressive by alien standards, but versatile. It projected a faint holographic barrier along the corridor, nearly invisible but detectable to those with precise vision. The device would create a subtle disorientation effect, enough to delay the intruders and give him time to act. As they approached, one of the figures paused as if sensing something but continued forward. Jace's human mind calculated their likely next moves. They would attempt to reach Kayla's chamber quickly, bypassing security systems. Humans excelled at improvisation, and that was exactly what he planned to do, use the corridor itself as a tool. The first intruder stepped into the corridor, and immediately his balance faltered. The holographic barrier created a slight visual distortion, making the floor appear tilted. The intruder stumbled, catching himself on the wall. The other two paused, confused, glancing around. Jace seized the opportunity. He moved with the quiet precision of a predator. Using a nearby maintenance panel, he released a harmless but sticky adhesive onto the floor. It was not dangerous, but it slowed the intruder's movements, making them awkward and clumsy. The first intruder, frustrated, muttered something in a foreign language, clearly unaccustomed to improvisation. Kayla, hearing the soft sounds of commotion, looked up from her files. Her eyes widened slightly as she saw Jace moving swiftly and deliberately, positioning objects, activating devices, and subtly guiding the intruders away from her chamber. She had never expected him to be so effective. Her amusement shifted to curiosity, then something bordering on awe. Jace did not attack directly. He relied on cleverness, improvisation, and the environment. A loose panel became a temporary barrier. A gravity adjuster meant for maintenance was set to tilt the floor slightly, causing confusion. Every step the intruders took seemed anticipated, every move countered by a simple but brilliant human tactic. The first intruder tried to push past the adhesive and reach Kayla's door. Jace pressed a small button on his device, and a soft light flared from the floor panels, projecting an illusion of another corridor. The intruder paused, uncertain which path to take. Jace's mind raced. Humans had learned long ago to make use of limited resources, to turn the ordinary into extraordinary. He was doing exactly that now. Meanwhile, Kayla watched silently from her chamber. She could not believe what she was seeing. The intruders were highly trained, experts in stealth and infiltration. Yet one human, using nothing more than creativity, observation, and quick thinking, was controlling the situation. Her skepticism faltered. She had always believed Valians superior in every possible skill, but here was proof that humans could be unpredictable in ways even she could not have anticipated. The second intruder tried to signal the others, but Jace had already anticipated this. He activated a series of small panels along the walls, creating subtle reflections and shadows that obscured the intruders' sightlines. The team began to bump into each other, confused and slowed. Jace's plan relied not on confrontation, but on delaying them until their own training worked against them. A sudden clatter echoed from the far end of the corridor. One intruder, stepping into a maintenance hatch Jace had left slightly open, triggered a harmless but startling alarm. The loud but non-lethal noise caused them to flinch, creating the final advantage Jace needed. With a swift but careful movement, he guided the first intruder into a narrow passageway, where the adhesive and the illusions trapped him temporarily. Kayla leaned forward, unable to hide her astonishment. I did not think a human could do that," she whispered. She realized for the first time that her judgment had been premature. She had underestimated his ingenuity, his ability to act in unpredictable ways, and his calm under pressure. Jace did not pause to enjoy her reaction. He moved quickly, guiding the second intruder into another subtle trap. Using a combination of light, reflection, and the ship's environment, he isolated the intruders from each other. By now, they were frustrated, unable to anticipate the humans' next move. The very skills that made them experts, discipline, precision, training, were their weakness. Jace relied on human adaptability, unpredictability, and intuition. The final intruder, realizing the plan was failing, attempted to retreat and regroup. Jace anticipated this as well. Using a simple but ingenious method, he created a temporary blockade with floating maintenance crates, manipulated by low-level anti-gravity fields. The intruder had no choice but to pause, giving Jace complete control of the corridor. Kayla stepped from her chamber, moving cautiously. She had to see this for herself. Her eyes followed Jace as he maneuvered, calculated, and executed each step with skill and patience. She could not help but feel a growing respect for him. Her previous assumptions that humans were primitive, clumsy, and limited were crumbling before her eyes. Jace finally stepped back, allowing the intruders to become completely trapped in harmless but effective obstacles. None were hurt, yet they were effectively neutralized. The corridor was cleared and Kayla's chamber remained completely secure. Breathing quietly, Jace approached Kayla. "It's done," he said simply. Kayla stared at him for a moment, searching for some flaw, some explanation, but found none. You handled them," she said slowly, her voice a mix of disbelief and admiration. "All three by yourself without weapons." Humans have a talent for turning the ordinary into something effective. The intruders, frustrated and trapped, were soon discovered by the Valian security team, who arrived moments later. They were puzzled and slightly embarrassed that a human had handled the situation so effectively before they even intervened. Kayla watched quietly as the Valians carefully extracted the intruders, noting that none had been harmed. She turned to Jace, a new expression on her face, one of genuine respect. "I misjudged you," she admitted. "I thought you were useless, but what you just did, it's incredible. I can see now that humans are not what I expected." Now Kayla's opinion had changed not because of arguments or explanations, but because she had witnessed the proof herself. The night continued with a different tone. Kayla no longer dismissed Jace. She watched him as he moved through the cruiser, quietly observing and maintaining readiness. His presence was no longer amusing, it was reassuring. The unpredictability of his mind, the way he saw possibilities others did not, was a kind of power she had never encountered in her people. By morning, the incident had become a quiet story among the crew. No one spoke of it openly, out of respect for protocol and the princess's reputation. But among themselves, they whispered of the human who had controlled the situation with cleverness, calm, and resourcefulness. Kayla prepared for the day's diplomatic activities with a new perspective. She looked at Jace differently now, seeing him not as a curiosity, but as an essential partner. Her trust in him had grown, though she would not admit it aloud. For the first time, she understood that in a galaxy filled with highly advanced civilizations, unpredictability and ingenuity were as valuable as strength and technology. Jace, as always, moved silently and efficiently. He had no desire for recognition, only for the security of the princess and the success of the mission. Yet deep down, he knew that his human qualities, adaptability, creativity, and patience, had earned something far more valuable than praise. They had earned respect. And as the cruiser glided toward its next destination, the stars outside still glittering in silence, both human and princess understood that this night had changed everything. Jace had proven the value of humanity in a subtle, brilliant way. Princess Kayla had learned that sometimes the smallest, simplest creature could outmaneuver the most disciplined and trained. And the galaxy, vast and full of surprises, would soon test both of them in ways even greater than three intruders on a corridor. The next day aboard the Luminar was calm in appearance, but beneath the polished corridors and humming systems, tension lingered like a shadow. Jace moved quietly, always alert, his human senses picking up the slightest irregularities. The previous night had proven the truth of his instincts. He knew the three intruders had likely been scouts, a probe team sent to test the ship's defenses. If there were three, there could easily be more. Princess Kayla observed him from a distance, her arms folded as she walked the observation deck. She had spent the morning reviewing the incidents of the previous night. Her pride had been challenged. She had always believed humans were simple, predictable, and incapable of strategy beyond brute force or luck. Jace had proven her wrong, and the realization unsettled her in a way she could not ignore. She approached him as he adjusted a panel near a maintenance hatch. "You're still checking the corridors," she said, her tone half amused, half serious. "After last night, I suppose you think more intruders are coming. And what do you propose?" Humans were unpredictable, yes, but Jace's calm certainty suggested a level of calculation that even the most advanced Valians could not easily anticipate. She nodded slightly. "Show me," she said. Jace smiled faintly, appreciating her willingness to listen. He led her to a section of the ship seldom visited by regular crew, a labyrinth of corridors and maintenance areas. Here, ordinary objects could become tools, ordinary systems could become obstacles, and ordinary human ingenuity could outmatch rigid protocols. "This area is poorly monitored," he explained. "It's where intruders are most likely to try to move silently. I can use these corridors to delay them, confuse them, and isolate them if needed." I will not hurt them, but I can prevent them from reaching you. And it won't injure anyone, but it will slow them down and confuse them. Hours passed as they prepared the corridors, setting subtle traps and diversions that were clever but harmless. They moved crates, adjusted lights, manipulated reflections, and even used maintenance drones to create misdirections. Every element was calculated, every step thought through. Then it happened. The alarms sounded, not the shrill emergency alarms of the previous night, but a subtle, almost undetectable signal that only those attuned to the ship's systems could hear. The intruders were back, and this time there were more than before. 12 figures appeared in the main corridor, moving with careful coordination. They were experts in stealth and strategy, clearly trained for infiltration and disruption. Yet as Jace observed them, he noticed patterns that made him smile quietly. Their precision was impressive, but it made them predictable. Humans had learned to exploit predictability, Valians relied on it. He turned to Kayla. "Stay behind me, follow exactly what I say, do not panic. They will try to move quickly, but we can control the situation." He activated a holographic panel that projected multiple false corridors, confusing the intruders and forcing them to move in directions they did not intend. Shadows flickered and shifted in the corridors, reflections created illusions, and low-level anti-gravity panels subtly changed the floor angle, making the intruders stumble just enough to slow them. Kayla watched in awe as Jace guided the intruders like a conductor leading an orchestra. One group approached a corridor he had prepared. A crate floated silently across the path, blocking the way. The intruders hesitated, exchanging signals and trying to coordinate. Jace had anticipated this, using the moment to manipulate light panels, creating illusions of additional corridors branching off. The intruders split up further, each group becoming isolated. "Humans are clever," Kayla whispered to herself. Her previous assumptions, strength, speed, training were only part of the equation. Adaptability, creativity, and the ability to improvise under pressure could surpass all of that. Jace moved methodically, his mind calculating each step. One intruder tried to bypass a floating crate, stepping too close to a maintenance hatch. The hatch opened slightly, and a soft alarm sounded, startling the intruder and causing a minor stumble. Another intruder approached what seemed like a dead end, but Jace had anticipated this. Using reflective panels, he created the illusion of an open corridor, luring the intruder into a harmless trap that slowed progress without causing harm. Kayla followed closely, her eyes wide. She had never seen strategy executed with such subtlety. No brute force, no weapons, only intellect, anticipation, and clever use of the environment. 12 intruders were moving through the ship, but Jace controlled their every step. Hours passed in a tense ballet. The intruders tried to regroup, communicate, and reach the princess, but every attempt was anticipated. Jace adjusted panels, moved crates, manipulated lights, and even used harmless maintenance drones to create diversions. The intruder's expertise could not overcome his unpredictability. At one point, an intruder nearly reached Kayla's chamber. Jace had anticipated this as well. He quickly activated a panel, creating a subtle shift in the floor and redirecting the intruder into a side corridor. Kayla held her breath, realizing that the human she had once dismissed as useless was now the sole reason she remained safe. The intruders grew frustrated. Their precision and training were being outmatched by improvisation and ingenuity. They attempted to coordinate, but Jace had already accounted for every possible move. Each step they took played into his plan, each hesitation worked to his advantage. By late night, all 12 intruders were delayed, isolated, and controlled without a single injury. Jace had turned ordinary corridors, crates, lights, and reflections into a maze that the intruders could not navigate effectively. The Valian security team arrived afterward, finding the intruders contained and unable to advance. Their surprise was evident. None had expected a human to manage such a complex situation without conventional weapons. Kayla finally exhaled. Her respect for Jace was no longer reluctant, it was complete. "I see now," she said softly, standing beside him. "I underestimated you. I thought humans were predictable, weak, limited. But you are extraordinary. I will not underestimate humans again. Not you, not your people." She had witnessed strategy and brilliance that no Valian training could have taught. Jace, as always, remained calm and quiet. He had no desire for praise, only for the safety of the princess and the success of the mission. Yet deep down, he knew that the events of the day had proven something far greater than skill. They had proven the value of human ingenuity, unpredictability, and the ability to turn ordinary surroundings into powerful tools. Kayla approached him again, her expression serious. "I want to learn from you," she said. "I want to understand how your mind works. Humans may be small, untrained, and underestimated, but what you have shown me today is remarkable. But sometimes, the advantage is being able to act differently when others cannot." Now she understood that even the most advanced systems and the most disciplined soldiers could be challenged by a single human mind, quick to adapt, clever beyond expectation, and calm under pressure. Jace moved silently through the corridors, checking systems, adjusting lights, and ensuring that the paths to the princess remained secure. His presence was steady, reassuring, and unpredictable in a way that no enemy could anticipate. The stars outside shimmered quietly, indifferent to the clever battle unfolding within the cruiser, but witnessing the humans' brilliance nonetheless. By the time the next day arrived, Kayla no longer doubted the value of her human escort. She had seen ingenuity, patience, and adaptability in action, and she had learned a lesson she would not forget. Humans were not to be underestimated. They could turn the ordinary into extraordinary, and their greatest strength was not strength itself, but the ability to think differently when it mattered most. And somewhere in the corridors of the Luminar, 12 intruders silently retreated, their plans foiled by the human who could see what others could not, who could adapt faster than the best-trained Valians, and who had transformed ordinary surroundings into an unbeatable advantage. The stage was set for even greater challenges ahead. Jace had proven his value, but the universe was vast, full of unknown dangers and unpredictable threats. For now, the princess and her human escort had survived, and their bond, built on respect and recognition of human ingenuity, had been forged under pressure. The galaxy would test them again. And when it did, the unpredictability of humanity would be ready. The corridors of the Luminar were quiet, almost deceptively calm. Princess Kayla walked beside Jace, her eyes scanning the polished floors and softly glowing panels. She had begun to trust him, not blindly, but with the respect earned through his actions. Humans, she had learned, were unpredictable. Unpredictability was power. Jace moved slightly ahead, his steps measured, senses alert to even the slightest irregularities. He had anticipated this day. 12 intruders had tried before, each one neutralized with cleverness rather than force. But the latest alert was different. He could feel it in the hum of the engines, the faint shifts in air pressure, the subtle irregularity of the corridor lights. The intruders were no longer a scattered group. They were organized, focused, and closer than before. "Are they inside the ship again?" Kayla asked, her voice calm but tense. She had grown accustomed to relying on his instincts, but a part of her still felt the weight of uncertainty. "They are," Jace said. "And this time they intend to reach you directly. I can see the pattern. They will try to use speed and coordination to bypass our defenses, but we can still control it if we act carefully." Jace had already set subtle preparations. Floating crates suspended with low-level anti-gravity, reflective panels to create illusions of additional paths, and harmless pressure triggers that would alert them to movement. Every tool, every device, every corridor had been adapted to give them an advantage. As they approached a junction near Kayla's private chamber, Jace motioned her to pause. "This is where they will appear first," he said. "We need to act before they reach you. Stay close, but follow my instructions exactly." But humans, Jace knew, excelled at improvisation and creative thinking. The moment the intruders stepped into the corridor, Jace activated a subtle device in his pocket. It created a faint visual distortion, slightly shifting the appearance of the corridor. The intruders hesitated, their eyes scanning for anomalies. Their training allowed for some adaptation, but the human mind, especially one accustomed to unpredictability, was already a step ahead. Using the anti-gravity crates, Jace moved one silently into a narrow passage, blocking the path of one group. Another crate, shifted through a panel he had installed, floated into the line of sight of another team, creating the illusion of a dead end. Confused and disoriented, the intruders slowed, allowing him to control their movements. Kayla watched closely, her heart beating faster than usual. Every move was precise yet flexible, a combination of anticipation and improvisation. She had believed Valian's strategy unmatched, but Jace was proving that ingenuity could surpass even the most disciplined training. One intruder tried to force a way through the floating crate. Jace anticipated it, pressing a small button on his device to activate a soft but blinding light. It was not harmful, but it startled the intruder and forced him to retreat, moving exactly where Jace intended. The illusion of multiple corridors, the subtle movements of objects, and the unpredictable human mind worked together like a perfectly executed plan. Kayla could not hide her astonishment. I cannot believe this," she whispered. "You are controlling them without a single weapon. How is this possible?" "I rely on observation and improvisation. Every move they make is expected and redirected." 12 highly trained operatives were now moving exactly where he wanted them, disoriented and delayed. One team approached Kayla's chamber directly, unaware of a subtle pressure trigger Jace had set. As they stepped forward, a panel beneath their feet shifted slightly, causing a harmless but startling imbalance. They stumbled, glanced around, and took a moment to recover. That moment was all Jace needed to intervene. He quickly adjusted the anti-gravity crates, creating a barrier between the intruders and Kayla's door. Using a combination of reflections and subtle lighting, he made the corridor appear longer and more complicated than it was. The intruders, unsure of the path, hesitated. Their precision could not overcome the human mind's adaptability. Kayla's eyes widened. I thought you were just lucky before, but this is genius." Jace anticipated this as well. He adjusted a panel, redirecting the light from the corridor to create the illusion of a wall. The intruders slowed again, unsure of the true path, giving him control of the situation. Kayla realized she had underestimated him completely. The human she once thought useless was now the only reason she remained safe. His mind, his adaptability, his ability to see patterns where others could not, had turned the entire ship into a tool of defense. Hours passed in a tense, silent ballet. The intruders were clever, skilled, and determined, but every move they made was predicted, every tactic countered, and every approach controlled. Jace moved calmly, adjusting, improvising, and leading them into harmless traps, isolating each group until none could reach Kayla. Finally, the last group approached. Jace had anticipated this moment. He activated a combination of light panels, anti-gravity crates, and reflective surfaces, creating an environment that confused and disoriented the intruders completely. They were surrounded, slowed, and unable to advance. Kayla could not help but marvel at the human genius before her. "You have done it," she said quietly, standing beside him. 12 intruders and none of them could reach me, all without a weapon. How did you do this?" Humans have learned that adaptability and creativity are stronger than brute force. Predictability is a weakness, unpredictability is a strength. The intruders were eventually contained by the Valian security team, who arrived moments later. They were stunned by the effectiveness of a single human in controlling 12 highly trained operatives without causing harm. Kayla watched quietly, a new respect for Jace growing in her heart. "Humans are not what I expected," she admitted softly. "I thought you were weak, limited, and simple. But you are remarkable." Kayla remained beside Jace, observing him as he checked systems and ensured the corridors remained secure. She had learned something invaluable. The human mind could turn even the simplest surroundings into tools of strategy, and adaptability could overcome the most disciplined training. For the first time, Kayla realized that her trust in Valian superiority had been misplaced. Humans, she understood now, were unpredictable, clever, and capable of feats that even her people could not imagine. Jace had proven it, and she would not forget it. The galaxy was vast, and dangers were many, but with a human like Jace by her side, she felt a new sense of security. Not because of strength, not because of weapons, but because of ingenuity, creativity, and the ability to act in ways others could not anticipate. As she stood by the observation deck looking at the stars, Kayla silently acknowledged a new truth. The universe was full of surprises, but humans, unpredictable, adaptable, brilliant humans, could meet them all. And she was grateful to have one as her protector. Jace moved quietly through the cruiser, checking every corridor and panel. 12 intruders had attempted to reach the princess, but none had succeeded. Every move had been anticipated, every tactic countered, and every approach neutralized. The human mind, adaptable and creative, had turned ordinary corridors into a fortress. Kayla followed him, silently reflecting on the lessons she had learned. Strength was not the only measure of superiority. Training and technology, while important, could not match ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability. Humans had these qualities in abundance. And somewhere in the shadows of the Luminar, 12 intruders silently reconsidered their plans, frustrated and disoriented, defeated not by force but by intelligence. The stage was set for the next challenge. Jace had proven his value, Kayla had learned respect, and the galaxy waited to test them again. But one thing was certain. Humans, unpredictable and clever, would always find a way. The Luminar glided through the stars with its usual silent grace. But inside, the atmosphere was charged with relief, respect, and the unspoken bond that had formed between Princess Kayla and her human escort, Jace. The events of the past days, the 3 intruders, the 12 intruders, the countless traps and diversions, had changed everything. The princess no longer saw him as a curiosity, as a primitive human, or as someone expendable. She saw him as a partner, a protector, and a mind as brilliant as any she had ever encountered in the Valian Empire. Kayla walked along the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the infinite stretch of stars outside. Each star seemed distant and cold, yet inside her, a warm sense of awe and gratitude grew. She had faced threats she had never imagined, and the human by her side had guided her safely through every challenge without a single weapon, without a single act of unnecessary aggression. Jace followed quietly, his eyes scanning the corridors even as he walked beside her. He had not grown proud or boastful. Humans did not always need recognition to measure success. Their measure was often results, survival, and cleverness. And in this case, the result had been clear. 12 intruders had been contained, none harmed, and the princess remained perfectly safe. Jace, Kayla began, her voice calm but thoughtful, I have spent my life believing that strength, precision, and technology were the greatest measures of capability. I thought strategy was always about the fastest calculation or the sharpest weapon. I see now that I was wrong. He had learned long ago that some lessons needed to be realized by the observer, not explained. You have shown me that ingenuity, adaptability, and observation can surpass raw power, she continued. Even the most skilled Valian operatives could not have handled what you did. You turned our ship, our ordinary surroundings, into a fortress. You controlled 12 highly trained intruders without a single injury. That is remarkable. She had begun to understand something deeper. Her pride, her training, and her assumptions about superiority had been challenged. And yet the realization did not make her feel diminished. On the contrary, it made her feel enlightened. She had learned that human skill and ingenuity were not threats. They were allies, powerful allies that could complement her own abilities and the capabilities of her people. They moved to the central observation chamber, where the stars stretched endlessly, mirrored by the soft glow of the ship's panels. Kayla paused, looking at Jace. I want to ensure that the rest of my delegation understands this, she said. They need to see that humans are not just curiosities or simple allies. They are exceptional. What matters is that you are safe, and that the mission continues without disruption. The truth is that a single human has outwitted and controlled 12 highly trained operatives without violence, and for that, you must be recognized. The cruiser's communications system activated softly, signaling the arrival at their next destination, the planetary summit where delegates from countless civilizations were gathering. Kayla looked at Jace. The challenges were not over, but she knew now that with him at her side, she could face any situation with confidence. As the Luminar approached the planet, Jace and Kayla walked together through the corridors, checking on preparations, confirming security, and ensuring the ship remained orderly. Kayla's respect for him had grown into something more profound. She understood that humans, with their creativity, patience, and adaptability, brought a unique strength to the galaxy, one that even the most advanced civilizations could underestimate only once. The ship landed smoothly on the summit's spaceport. Delegates from the Valian Empire, neighboring systems, and distant civilizations were already assembling. Kayla stepped forward, accompanied by Jace, her human escort who had proven himself indispensable. The delegation paused, noticing the human's calm and observant presence beside the princess. Whispers spread quickly among the attendants, curiosity and subtle respect evident in every gaze. Kayla raised her hand to quiet the murmurs. I want to acknowledge someone important, she said, her voice clear and steady. This human, Jace, has shown us all that unpredictability, intelligence, and creativity are strengths we cannot afford to ignore. He has ensured my safety against threats we did not even see coming. Humans are more capable than many of us realize, and this demonstration is proof. Kayla continued, let this be a lesson. Underestimating humans or any being based on appearances is a mistake. Ingenuity, courage, and adaptability can overcome even the most prepared adversaries. Today, we recognize this fact, and we honor the mind that demonstrated it. I thought you were useless, but you have shown me the truth. I will never doubt a human again. You have shown that humans, no matter how small or underestimated, can change the course of events through cleverness, patience, and observation. That is a lesson I will carry with me always. His presence was not only protective, it was symbolic. Humanity's potential, creativity, and ability to act unpredictably had earned a place of respect among the stars. Hours passed, and the summit proceeded without incident. Kayla noted the ease with which she moved among alien dignitaries, confident in her safety and secure in the knowledge that Jace would anticipate threats before they emerged. Delegates who had once underestimated humans now observed him with quiet fascination, noting the calm precision with which he moved and the sharp intelligence in his eyes. Later, Kayla and Jace walked through the summit's gardens, a large area filled with bioluminescent plants from multiple worlds. The soft glow of the flora reflected in Kayla's eyes as she spoke. "You've changed my perception of humans entirely," she said. "Not just you, but your species. I will make sure the Valian Empire and our allies understand the value of unpredictability, creativity, and ingenuity. You've proven that brute strength and rigid training are not the only measures of capability. Ingenuity completes it." His calm presence was a reassurance that intellect and adaptability could overcome challenges greater than any physical threat. By evening, the summit concluded successfully. Alliances were strengthened, agreements reached, and Kayla's delegation had impressed the other civilizations, not only through diplomacy but through the demonstration of human ingenuity at her side. Jace remained quietly in the background, his role subtle but crucial. Kayla paused, watching the stars reflected in the summit's crystal surfaces. "I once thought humans were weak," she said softly. "Now I know we would be foolish to underestimate them. You have changed not just my opinion, but perhaps the opinion of the galaxy. We act as needed and we survive. That is all any species can do. That is what makes humanity remarkable." And in that moment, Princess Kayla understood that humans, though underestimated and often overlooked, could accomplish extraordinary things. Unpredictable, clever, and resourceful, they could turn ordinary circumstances into extraordinary outcomes. And Jace, the human who had once seemed useless, had proven it in the most remarkable way. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and sometimes dangerous, but Kayla felt a new confidence. She had seen what humans were capable of, and she had learned the most valuable lesson of all. Do not underestimate a mind that thinks differently, adapts swiftly, and acts creatively. That mind, no matter how small or unexpected, could change the course of events and even the fate of worlds. As the summit came to a close, Kayla placed a hand on Jace's shoulder. "You've earned more than respect," she said quietly. "You've earned my trust, my admiration, and the knowledge that humans are a force to be reckoned with." The stars outside the summit's crystal windows reflected the brilliance of countless civilizations, but none shone brighter than the ingenuity of a single human mind, a mind that had saved her, taught her, and changed her perception of what it meant to be capable. The galaxy awaited them both, full of unknown dangers, unexpected challenges, and opportunities to prove themselves again. And when those challenges arrived, humanity, unpredictable, clever, and adaptable, would be ready. Jace and Princess Kayla stood together, watching the stars, knowing that their bond, forged through ingenuity, trust, and respect, would carry them through any trials the universe could offer. And in that quiet moment, the human had finally earned the recognition he deserved, not through force or weapons, but through the brilliance of mind, courage, and the unwavering ability to think differently when it mattered most.